Okay. This is one of the strongest pieces here, and to me, this is just pure passion. It's like you could just feel the sexual energy here. It's also spiritual energy, but it's pure sex. I mean, and just the red. I mean, one of the things that I've often thought about as an artist is that, and we're going to get stopped in a minute, is that you have to often merge the actual materials and the composition along with the message. Like, in other words, if you're going to paint passion, you just need to also have your paint be passionate, and you have to have your composition be passionate. You know, so you have to kind of almost be the message. That would be the shortest idea of what I would have to say, being that the composition, the color, the drawing, in other words, because you're an artist, you have to express the idea in a way that's not just illustrative but also artistic, and that means that the color has to work, the composition has to work, the different aspects have to work, because that's what you are. You're working with art, so the art has to work. So you can't just be it just can't be an idea that you sketch out. The sketch has to work. So at least that's my view. So like I feel very strongly about that, and this piece for me really works because I could just feel the heat. I could feel the heat of these two beings just making out and just being in an ecstasy, in a state of ecstasy, which is also what it's called is a circle of bliss. So actually you can imagine that the artist was trying to be in that state as well, and was very much in that state while they were painting. And this took a long time to do. This probably took half a year to do. They probably sat there and didn't do much anything else, you know? And you know, the reality of it is that today, and this painting was done in Nepal in 1512. So again, this is older than most of European paintings that are, you know, when you think about it, a lot of these paintings are in better shape than the European paintings that were done around the time. And they also have an exquisite, so this was commissioned in 1512 by, this Nepalese scroll painting commemorates a moon ritual which celebrates the patron's life and the achievement of seeing 1,000 full moons. Now, 1,000 full moons is probably more than somebody's typical lifetime. As I would say, like 12 in a year or 13 in a year times how many would you have? You'd have to live, what, like 100? You'd have to live, what, 1,000? You'd have to live 100? Now, how many years would you have to live to see 1,000 full moons? I figure you see 12 a year, so 10 years you see 120. I guess what is it? So you have to be over 100. Is that right? You'd have to be like 108 or 100 and something. And if it was 108, it would be a mystical number because they used to believe 108 was something special. So maybe it's just somebody that lived a really long time and had a good time living here. And this painting's a representation from the community who this was commissioned by, of somebody that really had a good time and was worshiping bliss. And maybe you'll look at this, just the pure heat coming out of that. I mean, just the love that's coming there and all of the different things that are going on. And a lot of this was green, by the way, when it was first created. This looks brown now, but it was really more like a light green, and over time that pigment faded. So some of it, not that I mind the effects of age, because I think that's part of life, I think you can kind of see that a lot of the dark colors have turned yellow over time, but there was a lot more green in this black that I believe was there at the time it was created, and that's kind of faded. But the red hasn't, because cadmium tends to be a true color, whereas some of the other colors tend to fade more. Reds don't tend to fade as much. I don't know if that's because of the red wavelength of it, or because the pigment is cadmium or something that they use. But reds tend to stay true, but certain other colors like greens tend to turn dark, and certainly other colors, and often when you mix them with different mediums, as you see in a lot of European paintings in the 18th and 19th century, the paintings have turned a lot darker and grayer than they were. You can still appreciate them, but they tend to look better at certain lights than others, and you kind of have to be in a certain state and mood to really appreciate art. So like, I will find this all the time when I go in a museum. I often don't feel like I can appreciate every type of painting. You know, I was there a couple weeks ago with a friend of mine, Cecilia, and we were looking at that day at Spanish paintings, Goya and stuff like that I usually don't look at. But that day the light seemed to be very good for just that painting, and those paintings look really good and fine at that moment. But you know, most of the time I'll walk by them and won't really give them much much attention. So I think every painting has its moment, and like there's a time to look at all this stuff. But I don't think you can appreciate them all the same way all the time. I think you need to be in a certain state where that work resounds, and so that's why you need to go to museums a lot, so that you can be in different states and appreciate things at different times. Okay, that's it.